Hello, Bravsworth. Hello, Hello, Bravs. We're back with Sick Literature to Sick Society by Duncan Williams. Duncan Williams. All right, let's go back to this page, Brav. One other point is of prime significance. Both Sartre and Fletcher emphasize violence in the situations they utilize to expound their beliefs. In Sartre's The Wall, 3 men have been condemned to death before a firing squad during the Spanish Civil War, and the story recounts in clinical detail their actions and emotions throughout the night prior to their execution. In No Exit, Garson has died at the hands of a firing squad. Estelle has murdered her baby. Inez died when her lesbian friend turned on the gas in their room. Fletcher's example of the 2 women cut off from the wagon train is typical of many which he uses. Both writers would no doubt maintain that violence dramatizes the situation and that, living in a violent world, it would be intellectually and socially dishonest to depict life in any other way. If, however, in the novels which he reads, in the plays and films which he sees, and in the philosophical and ethical treatises which are presented for his edification, Western man is continually subjected to a vision of himself as a being violent, animalistic, alienated, mannerless, and uncivilized. Then is he not being encouraged to identify himself with such an image and mold his own outlook and behavior to conform with such image? Is there not a real danger that, like Prometheus, we will grow like what we contemplate and laugh and stare in loathsome sympathy? Man is largely what he conceives himself to be, and the facts are incontrovertible. You son of a bitch. While the exponents of situational ethics stress the doctrine of every man his own moralist, crimes, particularly crimes involving violence, increase, and a wave of savagery threatens to engulf our civilization. After examining the real implications of existentialism and situational ethics, one can perhaps sympathize with T.S. Eliot's remarks and thoughts after Lambeth. The world is trying the experiment of attempting to form a civilized but non-Christian mentality. The experiment will fail, but we must be very patient in awaiting its collapse. Meanwhile, redeeming the time so that the faith may be preserved alive through the dark ages before us to renew and rebuild civilization and save the world from suicide. Ortega y Gasset draws attention to an essential flaw in relativism when he observes in the modern theme that if truth does not exist, relativism cannot take itself seriously. Belief in truth is a deeply rooted foundation of human life. If we remove it, life is converted into an illusion and an absurdity. And I'm going to look up this name just so I can understand what the Y is. Is it E-A-I-I? We'll find out. Hold on. It is Ortega Y. Gasset. Bizarre, bruv. It is from an inability to conceive of life as anything but an illusion and an absurdity that the theater of the absurd originates. Its advocates argue, much as the existentialists do, that since there is no transcendent being and therefore no universal plan, man is a random creature whose futile attempts to impose order on the surrounding chaos are merely absurd. He is seen as a victim at the mercy of an indifferent, if not hostile, cosmos. Although associated with such modern playwrights as Ionesco, Hildesheimer, and Dürrenmatt, the theater of the absurd had its genesis in Paris at the end of last century when Alfred Jarry's play Ubu Roi was produced at the Theatre Nouveau in 1896. This drama, grotesque by any standards of its time, bears a certain superficial resemblance in plot to Macbeth, but beyond that, the comparison between Jari and Shakespeare ends. Para Ubu, the embodiment of stupidity, brutality, and ferocity, murders King Wenceslas of Poland, and having gained the throne with the assistance of his wife, terrorizes the country until he is finally defeated in battle by the Tsar of Russia, who has allied himself with Bugrilus, the son and sole survivor of Wenceslas's family. The play ends with Ubu and his wife on a ship headed to France. Uhu Roy is really the first of a trilogy, the others being Ubu Kaku, 1897, and Ubu and Shane, published in 1900. Violence and animalism are the dominating themes. As the following extracts from the opening scene illustrate, they will also provide an idea of the general quality of the dialogue. Pereubu, does that say shitter? Shitter, too. Mariubu, oh, that's a nice way to talk, Pereubu. You are a bloody great oaf. Pereubu, Parubu, why don't I bash your brains in, Mariubu? It's not me you ought to do in, Periubu. It's someone else, Periubu. By my green candle, I don't understand. Well, Mariubu speaks. Well, Periubu, are ye content with your lot? Periubu, by my green candle, shitter. Madame, certainly I am content. Meraubu, who's stopping you from slaughtering the whole family and putting yourself in their place? Periubu, oh, Mariubu, you insult me and you'll find yourself in the stew pan in a minute. Mariubu, huh? You poor fish. If I found myself in the stew pan, who'd mend the seat of your breeches, Periubu? Well, what of it? Isn't my arse the same as anyone else's? That's some fucking great literature there. Later in the scene, Mara Ubu soliloquies as follows. Fart, shitter, it's hard to get him moving. But fart, shitter, I reckon I've shaken him all the same, thanks to God and myself. In a week, maybe I'll be Queen of Poland. Jari's intention was obviously to shock his audience, and in this he was eminently successful. It is, however, open to doubt if the play has any other merit. Ubu's disembraining machine, his mass impalings of his enemies, and the casual cruelty that permeates the play were obviously a deliberate theatrical attempt at protest, but one is permitted to ask at what particular social, religious, or political abuse the protest is directed. George Wellworth, in The Theater of Protest and Paradox, equates Ubu with the cosmic, malignant force that pervades the avant-garde drama, and adds that when Jari wrote the play, he was rebelling not only against the outmoded conventions of the current drama, but against absolutely everything, including the world and the cosmos. The futility of this is too obvious to need comment, yet it is surely significant that interest in Jari, and also in Desad, with whom Jari shares certain characteristics, has grown in recent years, and that in 1948 a College of Pataphysics was founded in his honor. He himself carried his protest to its logical or illogical end by deliberately drinking himself to death at the age of 34, having gravitated from alcohol to ether. What the fuck? Gabriel Brunet has said that Jari's teachings can be summarized as follows. Every man is capable of showing his contempt for the cruelty and stupidity of the universe by making his own life a poem of incoherence and absurdity. Italics are mine. Where was that? I didn't see the footnote. Oh, wait. Where was it? I didn't see it. I still don't see it. Anyway, oh, there it is right at the end, you dumbass. It is interesting to note that Camus, in the fourth of his Lettres, un ami allemand, 1944, attributes the rise of Nazism to the moral chaos created by an awareness of the absurdity of life. There's some absurdity. Pumpkin caramel is an absurdity I cannot live without from year to year. Kaminan Ubu Roy Wellworth sees it as the genesis of the avant-garde drama and rightly observes that in such drama the power to shock is its chief source of strength. It is also its greatest weakness because it is self-consuming. What shocks an audience today will be acceptable tomorrow, and thus the contemporary dramatist is constantly impelled to seek further excesses to gratify a warped taste which he has himself implanted in the public mind. Shall tomorrow's playwright boldly depict males embracing on the stage? Yeah, he is. It has already been done in Osborne's A Patriot for Me. Shall he have a man publicly castrate himself? And that would have been, what's his name? Who was that guy that ran for Senate in Texas? Janae's the balcony has anticipated him. Shall he display a woman urinating on the stage? That's basically all of porn now. Picasso's Le Désert Atrapi par la queue has forestalled him. Shall he stage his play in a lunatic asylum, a public urinal, a brothel? All such locales have already been exploited. The possible avenues for original obscenity and scatology are one by one being cut off, and one wonders how the jaded theatrical palates of the future will be titillated. The contemporary playwright or producer might well take as his motto après moi la sécheresse and congratulate himself that he is writing before a morbid public appetite. Demand scenes of such repellent realism that actors and actresses will have to be killed on the stage in order to satisfy it. That would be great, actually. The theater of cruelty is simply an extension of this trend and is as self-consuming as the theater of the absurd. Both depend upon shock, upon the ability to pander to the baser instincts in man, and this is true no matter how philosophic the theories of its exponents may superficially appear to be. Wellworth, indeed, appears to concede this when he defines the chief philosophical standpoint of contemporary avant-garde drama as death-oriented hopelessness. But it is difficult to accept the styling of such an attitude philosophic, and as George Satiana observed, spiritual anguish cannot be banished by spiritual anarchy. One other point needs to be mentioned, as avant-garde is, by definition, an advanced group which goes ahead of the main body under the assumption that the majority will follow later. In this respect, Dryden in his day was avant-garde, so were Wordsworth and Coleridge, but what they rejected were the literary traditions of the previous ages. Today's avant-garde rejects the whole basis of society and, indeed, rejects the very society on which it preys. To this extent, it could more properly be styled a cultural guerrilla group, owing allegiance to no one save its own members, contemptuous not only of the main body, but also of civilization and civilized behavior. Arnold Toynbee, in his study of history, states that the breakdowns of civilizations can be summed up in three defects: a failure of creative power in the minority, an answering withdrawal of mimesis, i.e., imitation, on the part of the majority, and a consequent loss of social unity in the society as a whole. If we are not affected by contemporary literature, drama, and so forth, then there is a withdrawal of mimesis, and our civilization is in danger of breaking down. On the other hand, if we are affected by them, it is surely worth our while to examine carefully the images on which we are molding our behavior. Trillian asserts that whenever in modern literature we find violence and an insistence upon the sordid and disgusting, and an insult offered to the prevailing morality of habit or life, we may assume that we are in the presence of the intention to destroy specious good. But why must one assume this? It is iconoclasm always a virtue? Is iconoclasm always a virtue? And even assuming it to be, are authors and playwrights immune to the danger that in the process they may become contaminated by their own material and descend to obscenity for obscenity's sake? One cannot overlook the possible relevance of Johnson's dictum that no man but a blockhead ever wrote except for money. And certainly, whenever in modern literature we find violence and an insistence upon the sordid and disgusting, we are also in the presence of a potential bestseller or box office success. Footnote 1. In an article, European Literary Review, Saturday Review, 6 January 1968, Ellen Stilto, author of Saturday Night and Sunday Morning, The Loneliness of the Long-Distance Runner, etc., and formerly one of British's angriest young men, was described as breakfasting at an exclusive Tangier hotel, sipping coffee and cognac. He was reported to be feeling guilty about his success. What would the comrades of Nottingham do if they could see me having my cigar lit and my shoes shined by the Moroccan proletariat? Presumably, if the comrades had read Animal Farm, they would not be too surprised. All right, where the hell were we? The amount of such literature is far greater in capitalist countries, where it is an extremely profitable business, and the continuing growth of a large section of the public which has acquired literacy without taste would appear to ensure even bigger profits in the future. It is also worth noting the term spacious good in Trillian's statement. Whilst the majority of these writers would deny the validity of any moral absolutes, they are seemingly able to distinguish between true and specious good, and are attempting to impose such minority opinions upon the majority. In an open society, we may concede that this is their right, but one remains at liberty to doubt whether the ordinary novel reader or theater goer is sufficiently sophisticated to draw such profound implications, or whether he sees anything other than men and women behaving like animals, trousered or indeed untrousered apes. In The Abolition of Man, C.S. Lewis takes issues with the modern concept of relativism in literature, aesthetics, and morality. He maintains that certain objects are sublime in their own right, quite apart from man's reaction to them. Until quite modern times, all teachers and even all men believed the universe to be such that certain emotional reactions on our part could be either congruous or incongruous to it, believed, in fact, that objects did not merely receive but could merit our approval or disapproval, our reverence or our contempt. Similarly, certain ways of life were held to be good, while others were innately wrong or bad. This code Lewis refers to as the Tao, that's Tao, right? Which he defines as the the doctrine of objective. I see, it's just a misprint. The doctrine of objective value, the belief that certain attitudes are really true and others really false to the kind of thing the universe is and the kind of things we are. Oh no. Footnote 1. Support for this view is apparent in some anthropological studies. The late Clyde Kluckholm, formerly of Harvard University, states, contrary to the statements of Ruth Benedict and other exponents of extreme cultural relativity, standards and values are not completely relative to the cultures from which they derive. Some values are as much givens in human life as the fact that bodies of certain densities fall under specified conditions. These are founded in part upon the fundamental biological similarities of all human beings. They arise also out of the circumstance that human existence is invariably a social existence. No society has ever approved suffering as a good thing in itself. No culture fails to put a negative valuation upon killing, indiscriminate lying, and stealing within the in-group. Nor need we dispute the universality of the conception that rape or any achievement of sexuality by violent means is disapproved. And that's continued on page 54. What? What the fuck does that mean? Is that right? No, it's not right. This guy's fucking lost his mind. Kluckholm also points out that conceptions of the mentality normal have common elements. The normal, look down here, dummy. The normal individual must have a certain measure of control over his impulse life. The person who threatens the lives of his neighbors without socially approved justification is always and everywhere treated either as insane or as a criminal. Of great importance to the concept of the Tao is the following. The very fact that all cultures have had their categorical imperatives that went beyond mere survival and immediate pleasure is one of vast significance. The word universal is preferable to absolute because whether or not a value is universal can be determined empirically. Some values may indeed be absolute because of the unchanging nature of man or the inevitable conditions of human life. Values and value orientations in the theory of action. Toward a General Theory of Action, editor Talcott Parsons and Edward A. Shills. And we should go back to when we first saw this. I can't find it. There it is. Basically, this idea is derived from Aristotle, who, in the Nicomachean Ethics, having pointed out that a stone can never be trained to resist falling to earth, even if one throws it up 10,000 times, states that man is similarly adapted by his nature to receive, motherfucker, the virtues which are made perfect by habit. This Tao embraces the Platonic, Christian, and Oriental philosophies, and it is only comparatively recently that man has questioned its essential rightness as a guide to civilized behavior. This does not, of course, mean that there were not social critics in previous ages. Indeed, many of those whose teachings have helped to formulate the Tao made extreme strictures upon their contemporary societies. Socrates and Christ, for example. But what differentiates these from the majority of moderns is that even when most critical, they never questioned that there was such a thing as good, just as there was evil. That there was a right way and a wrong way for a man to lead his life. Voltaire, the arch iconoclast of the 18th century, realized the necessity of the Tao when he wrote, "If God did not exist, it would be necessary to invent him." Most contemporary writers have gone to the ultimate extreme and have questioned the whole fabric of the Tao as a guide to life and have rejected it. This has resulted in dark pessimism and finally nihilism, the death oriented hopelessness to which Walworth refers. But both those attitudes have, of course, been expressed in the past. The speaker in Ecclesiastics declared that he had seen all the works that are done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity and vexation of the spirit. Macbeth, hearing of his wife's suicide and conscious of the approach of Macduff's avenging armies, gave vent to one of the most anguished and nihilistic outbursts in literature. Life for him at that moment was merely a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. No modern has managed to express the utter loneliness and alienation of man better than Shakespeare. But Ecclesiastes is not the whole of the Bible, nor is all of Shakespeare nihilistic. There is a balance of light and dark, of hope and despair, of sublimity, or is it sublimity, and the degradation in these works which is absent from modern literature. Yeats, lamenting the loss of what he called unity of culture, asked despairingly, "Why are these strange souls born everywhere today, with hearts that Christianity, as shaped by history, cannot satisfy?" And added, "Why should we believe that religion can never bring round its antithesis? This question today seems superfluous, with conditions appearing to conspire to bring about the vision which Yeats himself expressed in 1919 in The Second Coming. Things fall apart, the center cannot hold, mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned." And I believe that ends the chapter. It does. The Raskolnikovian, Raskolnikovian mind is next time, bruv. Goodbye. 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 Goodbye, bruvs. There we are. Goodbye.